Hello, hello, hello. This is Adrienne Berg, and this is the Ageless Traveler. And today I'm making a confession. You know, I keep bragging about going to 140 countries, but guess what's missing? Japan. Yes, it's a disgrace. I can hardly get the words out, I have to say, and I'm not kidding about that. But we're going to remedy that today because we are going to go not only to Japan, but we're going to go in such a way that we bring our phone, our camera, whatever equipment we feel comfortable with, and we're going to photograph it. And not only will we do that, but we're going to learn how to photograph in such a way that all of our other trips will be imbued with extra beauty, extra presence, and extra concentration. How are we going to do that? Well, we have two folks who do this all the time and help people do it all the time. We have Pete DeMarco, and he is somebody that I met at the travel conference, the biggest one there is in New York City last January during a blizzard, but we'll let that one pass. And when he creates his trips, he creates it with a person who actually was born in Tokyo, is here in the U.S., goes back to Japan every year, spent some of her childhood in Okinawa, and is an artist, a professional photographer, artist who displays. Both of them, by the way, are also professors and teachers. So when you hear them, you'll learn, not just by doing, but by feeling. So we have with us Junko Yokota. I'm going to start with you, something totally different, Junko. Are you showing now? What is your next gallery display?
Tomorrow night, I have an opening at the Within Sight Gallery in Chicago, and I'll have two photos on exhibition on abandoned places.
We have something called Culture Vulture in our newsletter, and we show people where they can see and enjoy things that aren't very expensive, but are really improve their cultural eye. And we'll have that in there too. Pete, you have created these fantastic trips. They are a very small group. For anybody who's interested, it will be in the show notes. And if you are interested, move fast because they get sold out. Now, one of those trips is to Japan. Explain a little bit what people see and do when they go with you. The next one that's open is spring. And it's a very special one. We'll talk about that. But what will they see and do on your type of trip? And what should they bring as equipment if they want to start really learning how to take pictures?
So the first thing that we'll see and do is start in Tokyo, one of the biggest cities in the world, 25 million people. But the main idea behind our trips are to give people a kind of broad spectrum or kind of buffet style of what Japan has to offer. So you'll see a bit of nature, you'll see the city if you like shooting, street photography, if you like cityscapes. Both Junko and I love night photography. We do a lot of night photography, neon signs and light trails in Tokyo. Then we slow it down. We go into the countryside. We go into the mountains near Nagano, Yuronaka. We go up. We see the monkeys there. That's the trip in May that we're doing. And we also get to see a kind of rural side of Japan, the kind of slow Japan, the one that maybe you're familiar with, the blue zones, that kind of Japan that, people look for when they want to know, like, what is the kind of secret to longevity in Japan? We'll slow down in the forests. We'll stay at a nice, which is a traditional inn. They have onsens there, which are the hot baths. They have the minerals. Each bath has different minerals as well. And there's a little it's like a spa town. And then most importantly, we also see a lot of the cultural side. It's not just going and taking a picture of Mount Fuji or seeing the Godzilla, popping over the building in Shinjuku. It's also slowing down, and it could be something from watching sumo wrestlers practice in the morning to get ready for their sumo tournament. It could be walking through a quiet temple inside the middle of Tokyo. So really it's whether you like photographing landscapes, cityscapes, you want to learn about culture. We try to mix in a bit of everything. But most importantly, we also have food. Both Junko and I are foodies, and we really believe that food is a deep part of the culture, how people prepare the food, how they eat the food, how they serve the food. So it's kind of an all-encompassing cultural tour. as much as it is a photography tour and being in the right place at the right time with the right light. There's that. But you're also learning about the culture. So if you're interested in culture and history and all that, this is that type of tour.
It sounds wonderful. It's a tour that I'd like to go on, but I want to ask Junko two questions. They seem unrelated, but they really are related. And we've spoken before. And there was something that you said to me that I can't forget. I asked you directly, all of this culture, all of this pageantry, is it real? Now, you're somebody who was born in Tokyo. You go back all the time. You don't know the culture. You are the culture. So we look at these beautiful kimonos, we look at all this and we say, well, that's a living museum. Is it? Or are people really living that way? So that's question one. Is this real? And then I want to ask you about the food. And I will also add a little something, let's say philosophical to that question. But first, this one. Is it real or are we seeing a pageant for the tourists?
Those of us who travel with Pete, we will not be seeing the reenactments, the pageantry and all that. We'll be experiencing life as it really is. And when we say real, I think we have to remember that Japan is a very modern country and that there are things that are very up to date. You know, the electronics, the lifestyle, much of it is very up to date. You're going to find air conditioning on the trains. You're going to be staying in comfortable hotels and all of that. However, it is very real to go to the ryokan that Pete has already described. It's very real to to wear the yukata, which is the cotton summer version of the kimono. It's very real to soak in the onsen hot springs. And it's very real to be enjoying and appreciating life and food in a way that is also of the past. So we don't do any reenactments. We participate in real life. Is it the daily life of people there? Yes and no. It's daily life for some people, but for some people in Japan, they go to ryokans themselves for a chance to retreat back and to enjoy vacation and all of that. So very much it is a real life. We also, as you said about the food, we experience food at all ends of the spectrum. At the ryokan, you will get very high-end kaiseki dinners, which are course after course, and each course has a multitude of dishes in each course. So one course may have 15 different foods served in bite-sized portions. The next course may have 8 different foods served in a little bit larger portions, but still manageable portions. But all of it is about how we see the food, because in Japan we say you eat first with your eyes. You have to appreciate the way it's presented and the way that it appeals to your visual sense before you even taste it. Every bite is different because of the way it's presented. But we are also the first in line at the convenience stores to have the best snacks that you can have. And I know that sounds funny to an American audience, but in Japan, we take our convenience store convenience very seriously. And food is served fresh in the convenience stores throughout the day. And Pete and I are good at showing you which ones we recommend to the people who travel with us. So yes, food is very serious, important. It is a visual treat as well as something that we can enjoy tasting. And we try to go for the nourishment along the way, of course.
You know, there seems to be, though, a spiritual approach to this. And this is the relationship I made with, is it a reenactment or is it real? So we know that Japanese statistics show us that it is the oldest lived population. People just live longer, particularly Japanese women. We know Okinawa is called the Okinawa diet. And I really looked into it. I don't really want another sweet potato, but I've had a lot of them. However, that's not the reason. The reason is that there is this culture eating when you're 80% full. Not in the US when you eat until you're 110% full. Oh, I feel so great. The tryptophans are making me sleep. So no, this is this whole culture that seems to have a lot of discipline to it. And even when you look on a plate, even a bento box, it's got sections. Is there a special discipline that maybe you even have living here in the US for so many years, mostly, that you still get because you're Japanese?
You know, I don't want to romanticize or glamorize any aspect of it, but there are ways in which people are somewhat indoctrinated in schools about behaviors because we're a very group-oriented culture. And so, for example, I went to observe a second grade classroom when I was visiting Japan one time, and they were teaching children the proper way to wash their hands and then to use their handkerchief to dry their hands so that we don't have create waste with paper products, and then to fold their handkerchief properly. And I thought about how there's always a way to do things. Now, that can both be a little bit
strict, maybe is the word.
yes, strict is one way of thinking about it, but it also creates a society that functions well as a whole. But also to be clear, I'm American English educated, even though I was born and raised in Japan. So I see this both as an observer and as a participant. I grew up with family in Japan, and yet my education was outside, which also helps me on a trip like this with Pete's group because I see both the inside and the outside observer stance at the same time. I've been taking teenagers to Japan for 24 years, and they're all studying Japanese. But one of my delights is being able to connect what's so important to me about my homeland with what I embrace and value about what it means to be outside of Japan, visiting Japan.
Well, that's why it makes this so special now. Pete, I mean, really special, really different. I want to talk to you about a couple of things. First of all, Japan is one of the major places you go to, and we're talking about Japan today. But you are also taking people to Eastern Europe, other places, Vietnam.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about those trips. Are any planned currently in the next couple of years, or what's your schedule?
Yeah, before I share that, I just want to say about the eating, having eaten with Junko many times, she eats everything on her plate. If there's even a little bit of rice in the bowl, she eats
me.
the last grains of rice. And she does that 80% thing where I don't think she eats till she's stuffed, but it works out very well because I'm a big guy and she always has extra on her plate and she passes it off to me. And I do the American
Isn't that a great-
100% thing where I'm stuffed and I eat any leftovers she has on her plate.
So we've spoken before, and that was because we had technology problems. I tell my audience everything. And one of the things you said, Junko, was that everybody eats the same thing, right? So that it's a communal idea.
Right.
I wanted to make a restaurant where every other person had a plate and you ate from the other person's plate. Just the opposite, because in my world, you eat now from everybody's plate. So culture it just is so steeped into all of these things. We all have these cultures that we brought through generations that we don't even realize we have. And I'm sure that that's the case too. So tell us a little bit about some of the other trips that you'll be taking us on.
All right. So, yeah, we have that. There's the trip to Japan this fall. That one's sold out. But the one in May 9th to 17th of next year, that's another Japan trip we're doing. Then I'm also going to run a trip to Montenegro and Dubrovnik next October of 2027. And hopefully we're going to add in maybe a South Korea or Vietnam to the list for next year, next fall.
This is wonderful. And of course, now let's talk about the photography. So all of those, and particularly in my mind, Japan, are just ripe for these beautiful pictures. And I did look at your YouTube, and we will have all this information on our show notes and in our newsletter. So anybody who's interested in these trips could glom onto them, but also your YouTube channel. And there was a fellow who went on a trip with you. And what he said was, I learned 3 things. And he was very clear. He said, only 3 things. And it changed everything I've ever done, every picture I've ever taken, and even the way I saw the world. It was just great. And he even told us what those 3 things were, but you could whet our appetite. How are you teaching people along the way? What's your process?
So that in that video that you're referring to, that's Michael Sachs. And on that trip, we went to the beach, Kamakura, which is about an hour south of Tokyo. And there's surfers on the beach, and there's no tourists there. There's almost no tourists. There's some Japanese there, but not many kind of foreign tourists going to look around. We wanted to go there because at the end of the beach is Mount Fuji. And there's surfers, and you can get great photos of surfers at sunset with Mount Fuji. And that day, Michael and his partner Fee, they said, you know what, we're just going to sit on the boardwalk there and watch the sunset. And while they were there, they got to take some photos, and there was an amazing sunset. I think what made that so special for him and what he said is, it was a moment that he'll remember for the rest of his life. And he had that moment because he slowed down. We weren't saying, now go here, now go there. Of course we have a list and we have things that we want to do and see, but we purposely build in time for people to kind of explore on their own or to find their own photos, to have their own moments. And when you can do that, when you can slow down, that's when you get great images because you feel the connection to the moment. And that image is a reminder of that memory. But if you're running around tourist spot to tourist spot, waiting in line, fighting crowds, you might get a good shot, a beautiful postcard shot, but it may not really resonate with you. So really what I try to teach people on my trips and build into is time for them to kind of sink into the place and really feel it, understand it. And out of that, great photos naturally happen.
Is that what he meant when he said he learned to focus on the subject? That I think the operative word there was focus. And I don't mean it from a camera sense. I mean it more from an internal sense.
So that's one other thing. So what he was doing was a common mistake that a lot of photographers make is you kind of stand up, you take the photo, what's in front of you, and you put the camera down, but you have kind of everything in front of you. And it's kind of like telling someone a story, but not really getting to the point. And
burying the lead. They say in this, you're burying the lead.
So Pablo Picasso said, art is about subtraction. And really what you're trying to do in photography, the same in any art, is you're trying to remove everything that's not necessary and only keep the essence or those one or two fundamental things that really tell the story. Otherwise, your eyes are just looking all over the photo. I mean, photography is essentially a visual language, and you just have too many words on the page. So it's like, what can I get rid of and just focus on the main thing? So that's what I was kind of teaching him was find the subject, look for the subject. Like, why are you pressing the shutter? Like, what made you say, oh, that's worth taking a photo of? Well, whatever that is, hone in on that. Just really focus in on that.
So, Junko, a couple of things. With the trip, the Japanese trip that is going on in the spring, there's also a very special additional component, and that is Fresh Lens, where some of the dollars will be going to an organization that does help kids who might not be able to afford to learn how to be photographers to do that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Fresh Lens is an organization started by Shirley Nanini and co-directed with Denise Orland. And the two of them put together a way for students in the Chicago public schools who are under-resourced to have an opportunity to take lessons. Their commitment to Fresh Lens and the teaching is, of course, through photography, but not only photography. They're hoping to have students who have an opportunity to make a commitment, to say they want to do something, to participate in it regularly, to learn from the experience. So if they commit to a year of photography lessons and they show up for all but 2, and that's the most they can miss, and they do their homework, then they get to be part of an exhibition. They get to have a free camera at the end through donations that we have from photographers. And then there's a second-year program, a third-year program, and other opportunities for them. But I'm very committed to all of us being volunteers to serve and share what we have with others. And if we can do it in ways that make the most sense and make the most use of our particular backgrounds, I think it makes a difference. I'm a professor by background, and so teaching and working with high schoolers is something I have done through my volunteer program at my local high school. So education is important to me. Photography is important to me. And so Fresh Lens puts that together. And so Pete as an advisory board member and me as a board member, we are committed to doing the best that we can to help this program in particular.
So, I mean, that's a wonderful thing. And part of life purpose, people tell me, oh, I don't want to travel anymore. I'm burned out. First thing I say to them is find somebody you could help and go there. And then you won't be burned out anymore. Don't worry about your checklist and your bucket list. You already checked it off. Now see who you can help and where they are, and that's where you travel next. And that's just a wonderful combination you're offering, folks. I do have a culinary photography question. I was sent by the tourist board of Portugal, actually, a few years ago, to write about a parade and to write about food and culture. And they sent a National Geographic photographer. I think he must have taken the equivalent of 1,000 rolls and got 6 pictures. I mean, this was a really very picky guy. And every time he took a picture of food, he got up and he stood on the chair. And he took it from above. He took the parade from above. He was like hanging from trees, but I think maybe that was his thing. We want to take great pictures of food, particularly in Japan, because I think that, as you said, the preparation is an art in itself. You standing on the chair when you take your pictures? How do you take your culinary pictures?
I am not standing on chairs because the food is presented to us by the person who plates it in a way to be seen by the person who is seated. While I may occasionally, and maybe even often, take a photo of the food from above with my phone to get for example, the bento box layout, the kaiseki layout, I always think about the fact that the person plating it knows that we are going to be looking at it from a seated position. So what I want to remember is how it feels to be served this food and to be able to see the food as it's presented. So I take it from a seated position as I look at my food.
So when we come back, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to ask 2 really practical questions. One is, if we're interested in the photography side, what do we bring? What's some equipment we need? And I'm a little intimidated by Japan because of the language. It's not something I feel I could speak with hand and foot, as a friend of mine used to do. She said, I speak 8 languages with hand and foot, but I don't know if the gestures are going to get through. So when we come back, we will discuss that. Don't you guys go anywhere. Now, you all know I have an agenda here. I want you to donate. It's very easy to donate to Good Grief. You simply take a look at our show notes. You'll see how to text a donation, how to put a donation online, no problem at all. You'll know that if it's $35 or more, you will get a download of my latest book, The Retirement Income Explosion. It's gotten great reviews, but I also want to tell you that I've got a goal. And that goal is to have at least $10,000 more than we had without this podcast-a-thon. And all it takes is 300 of you. I'm told that thousands listen. So if 300 of you just contributed $35, we'd really have quite a nice presentation for Good Grief. And don't forget to tell your friends. Bring them into it, too. Donate. Thank you. And now we are back, and we're back with Junko Yokota. I don't know if I'm still doing that one right. You say it one more time.
Junko Yokota.
That is a demonstration, folks, of my worry about language. I speak one language. I've tried so many times to speak even the Romance languages, which have cognitives that are very easy to know. I can't do it. But I also know that I'm not alone. And when it comes to language, where even the letters are not the same, I get worried. So everybody says something very simple. Everybody speaks English in Japan. What are you worried about? Should I worry?
Worry? No, you should not worry. But everyone will not speak English in Japan. Everyone studies English in schools, through junior high school, through high school. They are required to study English. They may understand written English. They may understand very slowly spoken and well-articulated English, but speaking it is a challenge. You will find many people who do speak English. But interestingly, Japan has become increasingly a country of a workforce from outside Japan. And many of those people are finding work in places like airports, hotels, and in the tourism industry. The people who are there from outside Japan typically do speak English. And so that would be a plus for you in hotels and areas of tourism. The other thing I say is that these days we all have access to apps that help. Some apps are more helpful than others, but apps and knowing how to use them will be one way. to communicate. But also there are built-in systems that can help you communicate. For example, you want to take a taxi, but you don't know how to get there. If you have downloaded the app for Go, then you can do all the instructions in English and the driver receives them in Japanese. So there are systems built in that help this work. But also, while hand and foot may be a challenge because of the differences in which gestures may or may not work, but I think there are ways in which body language, our gestures, and our smiles and all of that do communicate across cultures in Japan as they would anywhere around the world when we try our best. So I wouldn't worry.
Let's go.
But I would be prepared.
Okay. The next practical question is for Pete, and that is equipment. Is the phone enough for what you're trying to get through to your attendees and your guests there?
So I'll answer that, but I just want to say about the food photography, going back to that. One tip is if you hold your food by a window, so if you're in a restaurant, if it's daylight and the light is coming in, so the light can make a big difference on your photograph. Photography in Latin means light drawing or light painting. So photography is all about light. You hear people talk about that all the time. So if you don't have light coming in from the outside, like a window, if you're with a friend and they can turn on their phone, the light on their phone, or if you put the dish under a light that's above or something like that. So that's one thing. First and foremost is the light. In terms of composition, sometimes if you turn your phone or your camera tilted a little bit to the side, to the right or the left, it gives the impression of movement. It's actually something they use in cinema. It's called a Dutch angle. And in some movies, you'll see the cameras tilted to the side. It just kind of gives that feeling that the viewer is moving through the picture. So sometimes try just tilting your phone a little bit to the side, or your camera.
Now, does that work with a food still life type of thing or everything?
Everything. Of course, it depends on the situation and the subject. I like to do that with cityscapes. If I'm in Tokyo and I'm standing on a pedestrian overpass looking down a road, sometimes you can kind of turn your camera a little bit to the side, and it's almost as if a race car is like at the Daytona 500 spinning around the side of the track or something like that. So it's a technique that, like I said, they use in Hollywood, but also in art or photography. You can do the same thing.
Well, while we're on technique for a minute, I saw one of the beautiful pictures you had, and you always make a book with the folks who went with you. And I saw the beautiful book that you made last time with a gorgeous koi fish, and it was very, very beautiful. But one of the pictures that I saw on your website were people, and you couldn't see who they were. It was dark. A funny and wonderful thing happened, and it's a question I'm asking you about technique. I don't know how I did it, but I went to the Poe Museum last week in Richmond, Virginia, when Edgar Allan Poe was born. And all of a sudden, my phone only took black and white pictures. All of a sudden, I must have pressed something, because I won't say it was spooky, but it felt spooky. And these were the best pictures I ever took. I took a picture of a portrait of Poe. I took a picture of the outside of his house. They weren't just black and white. There was a lot of gray and grayish and that sort of things. I don't know what I did, but I'd like to be able to do it again. So that's an interesting technique, and I don't know if you've used it, consciously.
Yeah. Actually, I have a video on my YouTube channel about shooting street photography in black and white with your phone in Lower Manhattan. And I think like black and white is a great way to learn composition because you get rid of a lot of distractions. Actually, Junko and I talk a lot about night photography and why we love night photography. She says, because at night, you're only focusing on a few things. It removes all of the distractions. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about focusing on the subject.
Yes.
So black and white can be really good for that, as well as you can see patterns, lines, contrast. It just helps you to kind of focus more. So that's a good way to work on composition. Having people in the background, I do like to include people in the backgrounds of my photo because, especially if they're like a silhouette.
Yes, they were
Because
so.
if you have a silhouette, you can't really tell who it is. It's like a shadow.
That's right.
It
Mm-hmm.
helps the viewer to put themselves in the place of that photo. They can see themselves there. If it's not a silhouette, you see it's another person. Oh, that's obviously
It's
not
not
me.
me.
There's something about a silhouette that makes us feel like I could be standing right there. I could be experiencing that. And that's part of that expression. Don't shoot what it looks like, shoot what it feels like. Ultimately, like I want, I mean, I'm having this experience. I think this place is amazing or wonderful or whatever, and I want to transport the viewer to that place. I'm feeling like, wow, this is incredible. I want you to feel that same thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
what techniques, what composition techniques could I use to help you feel like you're there with me?
And when it comes to the equipment, though, of course, you're packing, so you want to pack something that is light enough. And so many people say the phone is enough. What do you say?
I always tell people use what's best for you. Don't
Mm-hmm.
try and take a huge DSLR that's heavy and carry it around if you're going to be tired in an hour or if your neck is going to hurt or whatever. The phones, we have them with us all the time. They're inconspicuous. When people see them, they don't get scared. If you're doing street photography, they're like, oh, it's just a phone. But if you bring out like a huge lens, they're like, whoa, wait a minute. What are you
Right.
doing here? I use a drone. I
But
use
you've won awards for your drone photography.
Yes, I love drone photography. I have a Sony A7 III, and I use that more often with a telephoto lens, so that those big lenses where you zoom in, because I find the phones aren't as good with the telephoto yet. So I like to use that when I'm photographing cityscapes, or if you're photographing birds or whatever, of course you want a telephoto lens. But for some people, it's just too much. A phone, for example, is like an extension of your hand. You're not even thinking about the phone. And
Right.
that was the goal when they made the iPhone. I heard the engineer talk about it, and he said, we want people to forget that they have a phone even in their hand. We want the phone to be an extension of their eyes. So, Junko, you had something you want to say?
Fascinating.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I agree with everything that you said. And I would add to that, for some people, they love what they feel is their creativity with that full camera setup. And so I think going back to Pete's first comment, you take whatever feels comfortable for you and what you need for that moment. And for some people, they don't want to have left behind their main camera. They don't want to have left it in their hotel. They need to carry it and they're willing to carry it. So I think it's knowing yourself and how you travel, how you photograph, and making the decisions.
This is a show where we ask questions that people have in their minds but don't want to ask. This is a really interesting one. I travel with a lot of photographers, and they are a pain in the butt. Let me tell you, I want to sleep. No, we have to be over here at 4:45 in the morning because of the light. If I hear that word, the light, one more time. Meanwhile, when I want to see something, it's 20 minutes for them to set up their stuff, right? And by then I'm finished with my story and I have to get a lot of stuff. Now, you're going with a group of people and they are tourists and they've got this guy with a tripod and God knows what. How do you handle that? How do you handle that for the group?
We are a group of photographers.
We
Taking up
accept it. We
We not
accept
only
each other
accept it,
for
we
how we
embrace
are.
it and we encourage it. But back in 2015, I'm the Japanese teacher I travel with, and I led a group of adults. And we advertised the trip as for photographers and those who want to linger.
Ah,
Because some of the people who want to linger want to write poetry, want to sketch, or just want to sit and, as Pete so beautifully described, absorb the space that they're in to experience it. And so by saying that we're a group who will photograph and linger, we're saying up front, we are not rushing around doing checklists.
that's beautifully put, Pete.
We do build in free time, kind of solo time, and we encourage solo time because it lets you explore and shoot at your own pace. So it's kind of like imagine a guided trip, but and having the benefits of that and being with a group, but then also having some solo time, or you can hang out with other people in the group if you want to kind of explore it on your own. maybe you want to go back to the temple we visited yesterday or explore a neighborhood in a different light, or maybe you just want to work on your photos. You can do that. The most important thing is that people have time to kind of find things on their own. But also, one other thing in terms of structure and logistics, it's not like we're walking around with an umbrella with 8 people saying, okay, now take a picture here, put your tripod here. Okay, now let's walk over here, look at that, take a photo of this. No, it's more like we go to a destination, let's say at a flea market, for example. We arrive at the flea market together, but then, and we give some tips, we tell you about the area, some photo tips, settings, composition ideas. And then we say, all right, let's meet over here at this cafe in 1 hour or 2 hours or whatever. So people can, if they want to break off on their own and shoot, they can. If they want to ask questions, they can get help. Or if they want to hang with their friends or partners, they can do that too. So it's a little bit of like structure, choose your own adventure. What is that thing that calls to you that maybe when you were a kid you saw in your textbook or you saw a movie, you saw Mount Fuji? Well, then go to Mount Fuji.
But so it's a perfect segue to end our show with Junko. And that is, I want to experience forest bathing.
Actually, I am very much the onsen person.
Okay.
I cannot say enough about the experience being in deep mineral hot water and feeling an absolute transformation of self through these experiences. And onsens are not about bathing just to get clean. Of course, yes, you bathe to get clean, but it's about the soaking. And it's about the vastness of the space. In other words, I prefer not the small onsens that you have in your attached to your room, because there are some that have bathtubs that are attached to your room, and some nicer ryokans will have small versions of onsens that are attached to your room. I like the expanse of being in there. I tend to go early morning or right after it's been cleaned, early afternoon, late afternoon. I tend to go when it's fewer people there so I can experience the vastness of the area and the soaking. But the rotemburos, which are outside, mixes a bit of what you're talking about this sort of forest bathing, being out in nature. The rotemburos are outside. You see the trees around you. And sometimes if you're really lucky, it's either raining or snowing while you're outside in this steaming bath.
Yes.
Or fall
And
foliage.
for me, a fall foliage, absolutely spectacular. I like to do it at night. I like the early mornings. I like any time. I've been known to take as many as 7 baths in an overnight trip.
Got it. Well, this show has even created more of a disgrace because I should have been there a long time ago, because I know I'm going to want to go back so many times. But for
Right.
everybody listening, do remember that this is a very special show because we're not promoting a trip that we have to do with. We're bringing you people who really can make a difference if you are a traveler. It takes your time. It has an expense, but it's transformational. Like nothing else, in my opinion, honestly. So, not the doctor, right? The suitcase. That's my motto. And for everybody, please remember, everything we do is free. You simply go to agelesstraveler.com. You can go to Travel Tuesday, which is our weekly newsletter. You can get our free ebooks, including how to travel if you've got certain responsibilities like caregiving. And of course, my motto, never stop traveling.